previous video, we just saw about the theory that what is a JPA and what are the different architecture, different architecture things that are included in the JPA, like factory, entity management, etc. So now we are just going to see the coding part. So for that, first in the Eclipse, we are going to create a new Maven project as new, then other, and then a Maven project. Okay. I'm going to click on next, and then in the in the filter, we are going to add the articraft ID as Maven archetype dot quick start. Okay, that is this one. That is Apache Maven archetype. Okay, so we are going to just add it. Then next. Then we are going to give the group ID as suppose I want to keep it as main dot practice suppose. Okay, and articraft ID we project name we can give as employee Maven project. Okay, and we are going to just finish it. So here, like you can see in the console whatever thing whatever is happening, everything. So let's just wait for it to happen. So here we have to give it as Y, then click enter. So as you can see, my project is created, right? So this is the step to create a simple Maven project. So as you can see, this employee Maven project, if I open first I'll close all the tabs that are present here. Okay, so this is the file of like app.file. So let's see what happens when we run it. So as you can see when we are running it, so hello world is getting printed, means we have completely configured the file. Now let's start with the project. So before starting, as we have seen that we have to add particular dependencies related to Hibernate and SQL, right? So for that, what we are going to do is in the form.xml, we are going to insert that dependencies. So now is about adding different dependencies. So as we are going to add different dependencies, so first one, as we have seen that we have to add the Hibernate dependency. So we have to go to the website that is Maven repository and then search for that is Hibernate core Hibernate. Also you can search this for this dependency, and here down you can find this dependency that is the Maven dependency. We are just going to copy it, and in our project here we are going to paste it. Okay, like as this. Okay, so if you will see in the Maven dependencies, you can see once you do Control S, okay, the related Hibernate, whatever related Hibernate dependencies are there, they'll get installed automatically. Okay, now second one is about adding SQL drive dependency. So that we will go to like again Maven repository, and for that we will use MySQL character dependency by going to this and then copy pasting this dependency. We will click it to MySQL drive. Okay. So here again in the same way we are going to paste it here. Control S. Again you can see MySQL connector is dependency is injected successfully. Okay, so this is about the dependency injections, like whatever as we said that JPA just give us implementation. Sorry, what it was, JPA just give us a specification, and the implementation has to be given by the Hibernate, right? This is how we will inject the dependencies. Okay, so this was about this. Now next is about creating the persistence.xml file. So how we are going to create is like here in the main you have to right click, then create a new folder. Okay, that folder is nothing but resources. Okay, resources slash meta dash inf. This has to be same as it is, then only the application won't work. Okay, finish. So as you can see in the src, main resources meta INF has been created. Now, next is to create a new persistence file. So we'll go is new file in the meta INF and I'll name it as, for example, persistence.xml. Okay, finish. So here it's giving an error because we have not added the UTF header and all, which we will do further. So let's see that again further. So this is just a basic thing like how we are going to add different dependencies related to the project, that is Hibernate, SQL, and then create a persistence XML file. Now let's see how we are going to work with the entity. So for that we have to click first create a new package, that is with the name as entity.ntt. Okay, so here we are going to give the new in this package we are going to give the entity classes employee entity, enter. Okay, now as we know, in order to make this Java class entity we have to give the annotation as entity, right? So when you will click here, you have to import this library. Okay, so why is this coming? This is coming from the Hibernate dependency which we have injected. Okay, if this Hibernate has not been injected, so this will cause an error. Okay, so now next is an employee entity. We are going to create ID and name. Okay, so for that, suppose we are creating it as private int ID, then we are creating private string employee name. Let's just keep it very simple. So as we know that I have to make ID as what, the primary key, so I'll give it as an annotation as ID. So as you can see, once I click here we have to import it. Now next is we have to give this table, right? So how, the like with what name the table will be saved in the database. So there's nothing but name is equal to employee, suppose it is entity. Okay, so for this you need to import this, that is import table. So this is the main thing. Now we are going to create, that is the constructor, uh, parameterized, both parameterized, no parameterized, simple constructor also, because we may need it, right? Then for superclass generate, and then getters and setters, that is source, getters and setters, select all, generate. Okay, so this is the easy step about creating the employee entity. Now next is we are going to create a new package, that is the package name will be dot persistence. Okay, the next step is about creating the persist student class that is inside this persistent package which we have created. So that is a new class for performing manager factory and manager related all operations. So let's name it as employee persist employee and let's finish. Okay, so inside this we are going to create a main method, that is public static void main string args. Okay, and then sorry, the spelling is wrong here. Public static void main, right? Now as we are going to create a like create an instance for entity manager factory, right? So manager factory, so the spelling is like this, factory. Okay, let's just import, okay, the manager factory emf equal to, so you, as we click on this we can import the particular library. So it is nothing but persistence, which is used for obtaining the instance of entity manager factory, and this that is create entity manager factory instance. Okay, so as we know here we are going to pass the name of my persistent unit. So as we have created the persistence XML file, so this is how we particularly created. So if you see here, like first what we have is like this is the common thing of every persistent uh, like a notation for telling that it's a persistent file. Then we have named it as using the syntax which we have shown in the previous video. So here we have named it as employee details. Okay, and then we have given different configurations like database configurations, JDBC driver, database connection URL, and the database credentials, or any other thing. Like if we will work about Spring Data JPA in Springboot, that we will, if you want to see the SQL queries or anything, right? So there we have show SQL, etc. So for basic understanding, we are just using these three things. So first for JDBC driver connection, like with that of the SQL, we are giving this link, okay, that is MySQL JDBC driver, then the URL for the SQL, that is the localhost 3066, and the table or the database with which I want to connect or where I'm going to store the data, that is a test. So as you can see in the database, I have created a database which is named as test, and inside this I have created a table which is named as employee entity. Okay, as you can see here, that is employee entity, okay, which we have named here in the entity as this, as you can see, employee entity. Okay, so this is a persistent file. Then what we have is the username and URL, that is of the SQL, that is the username of SQL and your password for the same. Okay, so here we are basically going to pass the name of a persistent unit which is employee details. We are going to copy it and paste it. Okay, the next we are going to create an entity manager. Okay, so then that step is what? Entity manager em is equal to emf, that is the instance of the factory manager, plus create entity manager, right? So for that you need to first import entity manager package that from Hibernate. Okay, now next, as we have seen, is to initialize it. So that is em dot get, sorry, em dot get transaction dot begin. Right, now as we know that we are going to save a new object in the database, and it's about the insertion, right? So we are going to look about how to inserting. Okay, so for that first we will create a employee entity object, and so we will create it, sorry, employee entity e1 equals to new employee entity. Okay, so first we will import our employee entity here. Then we are going to set ID and name. So en1 dot set ID as suppose 1, and e1 dot set name as suppose James. Okay. Then next let's make one more object, that is employee entity e2, which is equal to new employee entity. Okay, and then e2 dot set as 2, and e2 dot set name as suppose Alice. Okay, now next is to save this thing or persist into the database, right? So how the syntax is e1 dot sorry, it's not e1, it's em dot persist. What it is going to be, first it will be e1 and then it will be e2 dot persist e2 e2. Okay, and last is to commit the transaction, it is em dot get transaction dot commit. Next is to close the factory, that is em dot close, and then we have to close the instances also. Okay, Now let's first revise it what we have done in the coding part. First, we have created the entity, that is employee entity, with the annotation @entity, and then we have given two fields, that is ID and name. Then we have for that which we created the package which was about dot entity. Then we created a persistence.xml file. In this, we gave different configurations like how it will configure with my database, SQL, etc. The database name here is that test. Then we in form.xml, we included different configurations which was related to Hibernate and then for SQL connector, right? And next, last part was about creating or handling entity manager factor and entity manager in persist employee. So this can also be done in main file as well, but I'm creating a different file for the same. Okay. So here what we are having is we are creating an instance EMF of entity manager factory for configuring or setting all the configurations that are mentioned in the employee detail, that is the persistence file. Then we are creating and initializing an instance of entity manager by with the help of entity manager factory in order to perform different CRUD operations. So the first CRUD operation that we are going to perform is inserting. So that for that we have created first object E1, then added new different values for it. Similarly for E2, then we have saved it with the help of persist, and then we are committing it. And main thing to note is that we have to also close the manager factory and the manager instances, both manager factor instances and manager factor, sorry, entity manager. Okay. Now as we have started the running, so let's see what is happening here in the console. So as you can see in the console, it says that connection pool that this has been established. Okay. So if we see in the database, this is my database. If I refreshed my database, that is employee entity, you can see that two entries, two object, that is Java objects has been inserted in my database. That is, as we can see here, uh, just a second here, excellent. Huh. So here, as we have inserted James and Alice, so they have been mapped successfully in the database. Okay. So this was about inserting. Now, second operation that suppose I have to perform is related to finding this ID with 1, suppose. Okay. So for finding, what I'll do is, suppose the method is again same. Okay. Second, now next operation is for finding. Okay. So now what we'll do is first the method is again same, that is employee entity. Then what we have is uh, E1, we are going to initialize, give a reference variable, then EM dot find. Okay. So now in this we have to pass two parameters. First, like what is the name of my entity class, and again the second parameter is the primary key of my entity, that is the ID. So here what means, it means that of the employee entity, the primary key is ID. So for this ID, you find whether particular record exists in the database or not. Okay. So in find, as I told, we are going to give entity name, that is employee entity. Okay. Employee entity, then dot class, comma, the ID which we are going to find is 1. Okay. An important thing to note here is that if the ID 1, if it is present in the database, then only this query will return us some records. But if suppose ID 1 is not present in the database, so that will return us a null value. Let's check for different values. Let's see. So whatever here we will do is like system dot uh, out dot println. Okay, what we will do is even dot get ID. Okay, and we will tell it as this as employee ID. Okay, sorry, employee ID, yeah, plus. Okay, and next is what we are going to see, that with ID1, like what is the, whether if it finds that this ID is present, what is the details relating to the ID as well as the name of the employee. Okay, so that is employee name. Okay, and we are here going to get the dot get name. Okay, now let's see how it works. So again we will run it. Okay, let's see. So here, as you can see in the console, we are getting two details, that employee ID is one and name is James. Similarly, let's verify with the database that with employee ID 1, we have name as James. Now let's see what it gives for 2. Okay, so if I give here as suppose 2, what will happen is, let's see. Let's again run it. Okay, and as you can see, here we have got employee ID to name as Alice. Now, as I have told you, like what if we give here such ID which doesn't exist in my database? Now, let's see. So, ID 3 doesn't exist in my database. So, what it will return us? See, it has given us a null pointer exception. As this ID is not present in the database, so it will give us an error. Okay, so we have to only pass the ID which is actually present in a database to find. Okay, so this was about finding. Now next, what we are going to do is suppose updating. Now for updating, again same, we are first going to find that particular ID as 1. Okay, and now next what I have to do is, suppose I have to change the name that is associated with ID 1. That is, suppose what I will do is, that is E1 dot set name as, suppose I am doing it as Joy. Okay, for ID1 we have changed the name as Joy. Now let's see what all details this will return. So if you run it again, see, as you can see here, now the name has been updated to Joy. Now let's see whether in database the same changes are reflected or not. So initially at ID1 the name was Joy. Now let me refresh it, so we can see at ID1 the name is Joy. Okay, so this is how the data can be updated. So we have seen the three operations, that is create, then retrieve, that was a finding, and updating. Now last one is delete. So again for delete we have to first find that ID, then we have to remove that ID, right? So for that what we have is, that is this method is easy, that is em dot remove, and which particular entity value have to remove is E1. So we will pass it. This is for what? This is for deleting. Okay, now let's run this. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this says collection, okay, has established. Okay, now let's see in database what happens is, see, ID1 data has been deleted. Okay, so this was just a small example. You can try for multiple values and then try on performing different entity manager operations, that is create, update, delete, etc., whatever we want. Okay, so this was about the coding related concept related to JPA, that how you can particularly store, retrieve any data or Java objects in the database records using Java code. Okay, I hope you got this. Let's see in next video like what is collection mapping all about, mappings that are present in JPA. Till then, thank you.